I personally define creative thinking in two major ways. And so I talk about crazy ideas. And, these are the big innovations. The car, the Zoom at one point was a crazy idea because there's one point where this wasn't a thing. Crazy ideas are, those ideas that are very revolutionary and really change the world.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Leadership Stack Podcast, the podcast for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs to increase your leadership, teamwork, and profits. This is your host, Sean C., aka Mr. CEO at 22.
Being a creative thinker really helped me come up with all my books and the creativity school, so that that's why I'm such a advocate for creative thinking. All of these books are written on topics that I have, experience with and things that I've learned from my own life.
But that's cool, it's life's challenges. Yeah, I noticed you mentioned that from the first thinking, you just said point A to point B, what am I going to eat? And that's thinking, creative thinking. You positioned problems along the way. And that's how you came upon the analogy for your creative thinking. I want to know, since we have leaders and entrepreneurs and managers tuning in, how can they use creative thinking in their day-to-day work, in their day-to-day teams? How would that help them? Is there a process? So we talk about things that are kind of like in the clouds, like creative thinking is a word in the cloud. Culture is a word in the cloud. A lot of people don't understand that, but culture is really simple. We simplify it by the way you do things, meaning your processes, how you hire, how you fire, how you promote. That's culture. What your core values are, how well you implement that. Do you make perks out of it? Do you make it real in your company? Do you penalize from that? That makes culture. So it's not a word in the cloud. It's actually very simple to understand. It's your processes. But with creative thinking, even for me, there's no concrete thing yet about it. Can you pull it down from the cloud for us? Is there a way or a process to do creative thinking?
I personally define creative thinking in two major ways. And so I talk about crazy ideas. And, these are the big innovations. The car, the Zoom at one point was a crazy idea because there's one point where this wasn't a thing. Crazy ideas are, those ideas that are very revolutionary and really change the world. So because, Zoom has made it easier for people to communicate. So that's one type of creative thinking, those really big, bold, radical ideas. And then the other type of creative thinking I would define is problem-solving based creative thinking. So like my early examples of the $4.66, that would be, problem-solving based creativity, where you have to address an immediate problem or an immediate concern. You have very limited funds, but you have to get from point A to point B. Are you going to take the bus, half of the way? Are you going to walk part of the way? What are we going to do? So those are the two major types of creative thinking that I would define in a concrete way.
And how can leaders, managers, entrepreneurs, how can they use that in their day-to-day team activities or work and output?
I would say, this time that we're living in, pandemic, the chaos that it's caused, I think, especially now is really the time for all of us to really think about how are we going to get through these challenges? How are we going to, create ideas that can really help people along? Like I said, Zoom has become very popular during this time. And so this was a crazy idea that is really helping, a lot of us, in the world. You can use your creativity to solve immediate problems. So with, if you're short on resources, or if your staff is in different locations, they can't really come together because of the restrictions. How are you going to solve that problem and to get them working together and to get them working like a well-oiled machine?
Is there a process to that you use? Like, for example, I hear that there's one ad man who writes ideas on a tissue paper and he calls it disposable ideas. I think that's what he calls it. And so he writes on a lot of tissue papers and he throws a lot of them away, but he keeps some of the best ones. And that is his way of brainstorming, just putting it on paper. And some people use mind mapping. is there a process that you use that you would suggest to entrepreneurs and leaders who are listening in?
Well, my own process is I have a notebook. I have a special notebook. It's like I call it my idea notebook. And in this notebook, when I writing a new book or I'm planning something new or I'm trying to work something out, I usually just write down notes. And so I usually just kind of like think out loud, and that really helps me work through what I'm trying to get through. So I would suggest, getting yourself an idea notebook where you can just like work out what your issues are and what possible solutions you have at that time.
Let's talk about your ghostwriting career. So you mentioned you're a ghostwriter and you help other authors out there to finally finish their book. Now, what I want to know is what started you doing ghostwriting? How did that start?
Well, honestly, ghostwriting started because I was cash strapped. And so I just decided, okay, I have this skill. Let me use this skill to get myself some income, while I was at a point where I was making progress, but I wasn't, things hadn't really aligned yet. So I was cash strapped. So I just decided, okay, let me take the skill that I have and let me use it to, get me a little bit of money. So that was the beginning of that. And
so are there things that people can see that's public? For example, like, do you have a blog that you maintain where people can read your style of writing and communication so that they would know if, I want to hire Frederick, or nah, this is not for me?
Well, I don't keep a blog personally. What I will say is my job as a ghostwriter is there's not supposed to be any trace of me on the page. So if I was to work with you, for example, I would ask you to send me a sample of your work. And from that sample, I can figure out what your writing style is, what words you like to use. So like your linguistic style, because every single person has a different style of writing. So it's like your DNA on the page. So my job would then be to, how do I replicate that so that people, cannot tell that it was me who wrote it. So because I'm a ghost, I'm not supposed to. That would be my job in a nutshell.
Got it. And do you write for other people who are book authors or mostly bloggers?
Right now, I'm working with mostly bloggers, but I am open to writing other people's books. So if anyone wants to reach out to me, they can do so. I'm definitely open to take on clients with larger book projects.
And with that, how can people find you, get in touch with you?
They can find me through my email, fredkyomya@gmail.com. They can also find me on Twitter @fmkyomya. Instagram and LinkedIn is @Frederick Kyomya as well. I'm trying to get back on Facebook, but that's not really up and running yet. So you can find me on those 3 platforms.
Fantastic. Want to get Frederick to write for you? If you want him to help you out, maybe you have a blog or maybe you have a book in mind, just hit him up. We're going to have all those links in the show notes. So if you're watching from YouTube or if you're listening from Spotify, Apple, iTunes, you can just type in leadershipstack.com, look for the episode of Frederick Kyomya, and you can find his links in the show notes. Get in touch with him and get him to ghostwrite for you as well. Frederick, thank you so much for your time and the learnings. We really appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
This episode is partnered up with Armoury.ph. Armoury is an online watch store and is the exclusive distributor of the brands TW Steel, Dion Milano, Fonderia, Luminox, and Mondane in the Philippines. Yes, folks, those are Italian watch brands. If you are looking to buy your next go-to luxurious everyday watch, go to Armoury.ph and enter the coupon code LS30. Armoury.ph delivers straight to your doorstep with a security tape to make sure that your package is safe from theft, arrives on time, and is guaranteed working 100%. Go to Armoury.ph and buy your first luxury watch today.
Either I'm majority owner where I make the decisions, or I'm a silent partner where you guys make the decisions, but if you want for my advice, I'll give it. Why do I do it that way? Because it's hard when you have a lot of heads making decisions. Pag marami yung ulo, hindi na tao ang tawag doon. Tawag doon monster.